It's fight week. We got Artur Beterbiev versus Anthony Yarde out there across the pond, plus an announcement involving Tim Tszyu and Tony Harrison of all people. Anyways, let's chop it up.
They hear him. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier.
Rule number uno, never let no one know how much dough you hold, cause you know that cheddar breed jealousy, especially if your man effed up, you get your ass stuck up. Shout out to Biggie Smalls. What's up with it, fam? This is Hot Boxing Minute, your favorite pharmaceutical engineer turned boxing analyst, back at you with that uncut realness, narrative-free, bias-free, upfront and legit boxing talk for your ass. And we are going to talk about the big Artur Beterbiev fight coming up this weekend. He's going to be fighting Anthony Yarde out there across the pond. What is the location? Out there at Wembley at the OVO Arena. Saturday, January 28th in the year of our Lord 2023. Anthony Yarde is up against it in this one. Artur Beterbiev, we already know, 100% knockout to win ratio, the unified light heavyweight champion. He has the WBC, he has the IBF, he has the WBO light heavyweight strap, the one he just recently got off of that crazy performance against Joe Smith Jr., my guy. Give it up to Union Joe, Strong Island's finest, but he just did not have what it took. And nobody has at this point to answer the question that is Artur Beterbiev, who just recently turned 38 years old, by the way. You know, it was interesting making a video about this. I'm going to be honest, folks. I was looking at the video footage, trying to examine the fights, trying to see what it is that, you know, Anthony Yarde can actually bring to the table against a guy like Artur Beterbiev. I plan to do a technical breakdown. I did a video technical breakdown of boxing technique for Frank Martin and Sherzad Ali, but there really wasn't much to go on as far as Artur Beterbiev when you look at his style. Artur Beterbiev had a very heavily decorated amateur boxing career. I'd say he must have had at least 200 or 300 fights. You know how they are out there in Eastern Europe. He was part of the Russian national boxing team as an amateur. Same thing with Dmitry Bivol, a guy that used to train at my gym named Jaba Kotishvili, was on the same team with him. So I've got a little bit of feedback from him on how he thinks the fight between Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev goes down. If it ever does go down, hoping it does go down because that's the fight for undisputed. Either way, Anthony Yarde from out there in the UK, from Hackney, London, he earned his spot. There's an age difference. Artur Beterbiev is 38 years old. Will we see him get old overnight? I'm not really sure. When it comes to Artur Beterbiev, it wasn't like he was a fast, explosive. Well, maybe he is explosive, but as far as him moving fast, nobody ever described Artur Beterbiev as fast. Artur Beterbiev starts slow, notoriously slow. As he's gotten older, he starts slower. He's, you know, when he first got in the game, all that power, all that amateur experience, he was knocking dudes out. Second round, first round, third round, second round. As he's gotten older, he's taking his time. He's been more patient. His approach lately has been to watch the fighter, observe their movements, and then pick them apart later on towards the second half of the fight. Joe Smith Jr. was the exception in that last fight. Joe Smith Jr., we all love Union Joe. I've interviewed him on my channel before. Big ups to my man Union Joe and his coach. And their game plan was to go in and bum rush him. So Joe Smith Jr. has that kind of power. He knocked Bernard Hopkins, the legend, the OG, out of the ring. He knocked Eliader Alvarez out of the ring. So we know Joe Smith Jr. had pop. And he got a couple of clean cracks on Artur Beterbiev, but didn't put the Russian down, the Dagestani, the Chechen, whatever you want to refer to him as. Now, Artur Beterbiev has, you know, he's hit the canvas before. He hit the canvas against Callum Johnson. And earlier in his career, I forgot the other guy's name. He was a Canadian. He ended up hitting the canvas in that time. So Artur Beterbiev can be hit. He can't hit the ground. But that hasn't affected his performance. He is still, at this point in his career, what is he? 18-0. 18-0. All 18 of his wins by knockout. You got Anthony Yarde. Tunde, lines in the camp, all that good stuff. I remember back in the build-up for the Kovalev fight, they were bragging about how Anthony Yarde doesn't do a lot of heavy sparring. Well, Anthony Yarde does have explosive power. He's good at knocking out Euro-level fighters. More specifically, UK level fighters, but he's done, fought some international competition. Let me list off, some of the localities of where his fighters are from. Oh, it doesn't give it on this layout. Anyways, does it? No, I don't have it on the thing that I'm reading right here, but all of his fights have pretty much been out there in England. He has not fought out here in the States. And, if you're making money and you're an attraction out there, there's really no motivation to come out to this side. Anthony Yarde likes to use that not the half guard, but the shoulder roll technique, made famous by Floyd Money Mayweather. Anthony Yarde tends to have, gas problems, cardio and what's the term? Cardio and going long distance towards the end of the fight. Goodness, I'm at a loss for words right now, folks. Anthony Yarde sometimes doesn't have wind going down to the later stretches of fights. He's got 2 losses on his record. The first one was a loss against Sergey Kovalev. I want to say it was like an 11th round knockout. He lost in the 11th round out of 12 due to jabs. By a definitely past his prime Sergey Kovalev, who did have arguably one of the nicest jabs in the game when he was in his prime. His second loss was a decision against Lyndon Arthur, a domestic level at best light heavyweight fighter. I don't mean to drag Anthony Yarde. I don't have anything personal against him, to be honest, but he is going to have a hell of a time going up there against Artur Beterbiev. When it comes to Chechnya and Dagestan, they're brother and sister countries, kind of relatively next to each other. They have been politically and socially unstable for a while, specifically Chechnya. Dagestan kind of stabilized a little more towards the end of the 90s and the early 2000s, but Chechnya is still fighting Russian occupation, but this stew of instability has bred some of the most amazing combat sports stars, guys like Islam Makhachev, of course, Khabib Nurmagomedov. This weekend, we're going to see boxing's very own Artur Beterbiev, the unified light heavyweight champion who has knocked out every single one of his opponents to date. So I don't know what's in the water out there, but it's got some amazing stuff. Maybe it's the relative instability of the region, the cultural values of the people, but those Chechens, those Dagestanis, those devout Muslim minorities out there, damn, they can fight. I don't know if it's the beard. I don't know, but they can fight. So Anthony Yarde is explosive. He has knockout power against Euro-level fighters. Unfortunately, when he is put under pressure, that shoulder roll technique made famous by Floyd Mayweather does break down, as was the case with Sergey Kovalev when Kovalev knocked him out with just a jab. And then Lyndon Arthur picked him apart in a relatively uneventful fight using just a jab. So he does have holes in his defense, and you can believe that Artur Beterbiev is going to exploit those. Now, I'll give Anthony Yarde the benefit of the doubt as far as a puncher's chance. He does have knockout power when he is able to get proper control of his distance and his timing. He can hit from various different angles. When you look at Artur Beterbiev, he really does everything flawlessly. He moves slow. That's Artur Beterbiev's probably only main weakness is visually when you see him, it appears that he punches slow, but he gradually gains momentum. As he slowly breaks down his opponents and he maps out the path he's going to take to break them into pieces, he ends up knocking them out. And aside from a very lucky punch, I don't know what Anthony Yarde is going to do against Artur Beterbiev. I'm not sure what the odds are, but I'm sure they're out of control in favor of Artur Beterbiev. Maybe Anthony Yarde will get lucky and we'll witness Artur Beterbiev turn all of 38 years old right in front of us. That scenario is very unlikely. Artur Beterbiev actually hasn't taken a lot of damage. He did get his head split open in his fight with Marcus Brown, but it wasn't a lot of punches. He wasn't taking a lot of heavy damage. He didn't get a lot of crazy wars over the course of his 18-fight professional career, although he did have that lengthy amateur career. So maybe the stars will align. You know, when the light eclipses and it shines through the pyramid and opens up the tomb, maybe Anthony Yarde will get lucky, and in that moment he will clip Artur Beterbiev with something lucky and manage to exploit the 38 years that Artur Beterbiev has been on this earth. I, for one, don't see that unlikely scenario. So my prediction for that fight is going to be a mid-stoppage. 6th, 7th round. I don't see it going into the late rounds. Boxing community, how do you see that fight breaking down? Let me know in the comments section. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so. So just a quick recap. Artur Beterbiev, the tough Chechenian or Dagestani, whichever you want to call it. He's from that region of the world where they've been fighting his entire life, and he's got an undefeated record, and he's knocked out every single one of his opponents. He's the unified light heavyweight champion. He is fighting Anthony Yarde, a knockout artist from out there in the UK, this weekend at the O2 in Wembley. Boxing community, how do you see that fight breaking down? Let me know in the comments section, y'all. Let's chop this up. Now, let's switch subjects to the fight announcement that was just recently made. So for those of you who don't know, Jermell Charlo, a.k.a. Iron Man, is the undisputed junior middleweight 154-pound limit champion of the world. And he got it when he unified all the straps. His last strap was the unification victory, the rematch he had with Brian Castano. The first fight was a draw. Many people say Castano should have won that fight. I'm not here to discuss the fight night, and it's just to share the announcement with you that Tim Tszyu has found a replacement to keep him busy while he is waiting for the champion Jermell Charlo to heal. So they've decided on a date. Let's see if did I post the article for the date? Okay, so here's basically what it breaks down to. Jermell Charlo, a.k.a. Iron Man, the undisputed 154 champion, got injured, so they're going to postpone his match with Tim Tszyu. In the meantime, as opposed to resting on his laurels, Tim Tszyu is going to pick up a fight with Tony Harrison. It's going down March 12th in Australia at a location they have not figured out yet. So as opposed to just sitting down and being lazy, waiting for Jermell Charlo to heal, Tim Tszyu is going to take up a super dangerous opponent in the meantime. Now, you got to give it up, folks. Whether you like Tim Tszyu or not, or you follow his career or not, the boxing community as a whole has got to give Tim Tszyu his credit. He's the son of Costa Tszyu. He grinded his career out to get to the point where he has a mandatory shot at the undisputed belts with Jermell Charlo, but Jermell Charlo gets injured. So instead of waiting, Tim Tszyu is going to fight super bad Tony Harrison, the only dude to give Jermell Charlo a defeat. Now, this could either work out splendidly, he can get the win and increase his skill set, or Tim Tszyu could lose and blow his chances at fighting for the undisputed straps with Jermell Charlo. You got to give Tim Tszyu his credit. He's a throwback fighter. And I like this fight. You know, it's an interesting matchup. Tony Harrison is arguably one of the best technicians in the 154-pound division. The problem is, Tony Harrison's biggest weakness is Tim Tszyu's greatest asset: engine, cardio, longevity in the later part of the rounds. Tim Tszyu can go all 10, all 12 rounds, and he will throw. Tony Harrison has shown in the past that he's susceptible to not being able to sustain his momentum going into those later rounds. We'll find out soon enough on March 12th. Boxing community, how do you see that fight playing out with Tim Tszyu and Tony Harrison? Let me know in the comments section. Let's chop this up. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so. If you don't already know, you're rocking with Hot Boxing Minute, the future of boxing analysis on YouTube and TikTok, y'all. Peace.